more than a wandering ranch hand, the kind who kept his spurs light on the ground and his moral compass even lighter. He didn't own much, but he stuck to one straightforward principle. If it ain't yours, you let it lie. That principle got put to the test one afternoon when he ventured on to Navajo territory 13 years back, well before folks started whispering his name around campfires. You know, stories like this always make me wonder, where are you listening from right now? Is it a cozy armchair by the fire, or maybe squeezed in on a commute? Wherever it is, thanks for joining me. Let's ride on. He'd been traveling solo, stomach growling and ammo running scarce, with his mind fixed solely on spotting a stream before the sun dipped low. His mare, all caked in trail dust, had guided him up a gentle slope where a faint sparkle snagged his attention. Tom wasn't one to go chasing shadows in the heat, but there was something about that gleam that tugged at him, drawing him nearer until he uncovered its origin. Tucked under a weathered outcrop of red rock, flecks of raw gold scattered like fragments of captured sunlight buried in the soil. Nuggets that rich and abundant could transform an ordinary drifter into a fellow with a sturdy cabin, a carved sign on the door, and days filled with ease. Tom crouched down, gathered a fistful, felt the heft sink into his grip. Most any other soul would have snatched it all up and bolted, but Tom had logged enough miles across the Badlands to spot Navajo boundary signs, those deliberate piles of stones arranged with intent, not by chance. He grasped the implication right away. The ground wasn't forsaken. Folks had set those markers as a clear caution. The treasure belonged to them, not him. He could have brushed it off. He could have stuffed his pack mule's bags and galloped toward a tomorrow built on riches and deceit. But deep down, something held him back. Perhaps it was the echo of counsel from his old man years gone by. A fellow's true value shows in what he chooses to abandon. Tom let the gold slip from his fingers, backed away and murmured to the wind-swept earth, "Not for me." Then he swung up onto his mare and pressed on, abandoning the wealth just as he had found it. Over the seasons that followed, he scarcely gave it another thought. He meandered through dusty hamlets, labored on spreads, mended railings, smoothed over disputes, and now and then bedded down under the vast night dome with only a woolen throw for cover amid a scatter of constellations. A time or two he pondered what fate had befallen that concealed vein, but he never circled back to see. He reckoned the Navajo had gathered it up, or perhaps it lingered hidden still, biding time for some other wayfarer. Whichever the case, it was no longer his worry. Yet destiny has a way of holding on to the quiet choices we make alone. One twilight, 13 years on, Tom guided his horse into a sparse outpost clinging to the fringes of the arid plateau. The spot seemed to be hanging on by a thread. One tavern, a grit-choked mercantile, and a farrier who struck his anvil with such measured swings it was like he was tallying his own pulses. Tom had no intention of lingering. He figured on swapping for provisions and resuming his ramble. But as he pushed through the tavern doors, murmurs faded, heels halted, and gazes trailed a line past his shoulder. He pivoted to see a Navajo tracker propped in the frame, lean and sharp-featured, his stare fixed unerringly on Tom. The tracker advanced a step. "You're Tom Riley," he declared, not posing it as a question. Tom dipped his chin, his palm staying clear of his sidearm, though he was sharp enough to sense the air thickening. "Depends on who's inquiring," he replied evenly. "Someone who travels alongside those with long memories. You'll ride along with me." He didn't push back. There was no edge in the man's words, just quiet resolve. And Tom had picked up early on that when Navajo riders spoke with that kind of assurance, it paid not to turn your back. He trailed him out of the cluster of buildings, climbed aboard his mare, and kept pace beside him as the feeding glow gave way to the hushed expanses of the wilds. Silence hung between them until they crested the distant rise, the very same rise where Tom had stumbled on the gold all those years prior. There, a cluster of figures waited. Navajo riders, men and women alike, regarding him with expressions as steady as carved stone. As Tom eased down from his saddle, a peculiar calm settled on him. No one bristled with anger, no rifles trained his way, no bitterness, just a grave atmosphere, like an assembly bound by intent. And here's where the tale really turns, but hold on a second. Where are you listening from this time? A quiet evening walk, or maybe tucked in with the lights low? Share it below if you can. It keeps these stories feeling alive, like we're all around that same campfire. Leading them was a seasoned chief, adorned in ritual cords and hawk plumes, his features etched deep with the burden of command. You relinquished what wasn't yours. Our kin observed. The soil observed. Tom's voice caught in his chest, tangled with bewilderment. He hadn't breathed a word of the gold to anyone. You know of that?" he ventured.
"We sensed it the moment you pressed the ground and elected to depart," the chief replied. "Our sentinels beheld a rider bow before riches that drive most to bloodshed. From that hour, the territory has held your name close." Tom glanced at his boots, a flush of awkwardness rising. "Never figured it mattered much," he mumbled. The chief drew nearer, his tone firm yet kind. "It did, and no one who respects the domain of others fades from the recollection of those who tend it." Before Tom could gather his thoughts, the group shifted aside to unveil a figure he least anticipated. A young lady, perhaps 20 summers, with bold eyes traced in ancestral patterns. She bore a parcel swathed in softened leather, held with reverence. A spark of familiarity stirred in Tom. She'd been a slip of a girl the first time he'd wandered these parts. He recalled her peeking from the folds of her mother's shawl, peering at him from afar. She advanced now, grown tall and resolute, the child long vanished. "Through 13 winters this has waited," she murmured gently, "for the rider who forsook the gold that wasn't his to claim." Tom's pulse hammered once, fierce, as she settled the package into his grasp. He cradled it with caution, uncertain if the moment called for unveiling it. The Navajo chief inclined his head, as if granting a wordless nod. When Tom peeled back the leather, he braced for some ritual token or emblem of regard. Instead, he went still. Nestled within were ingots of gold, shaped, polished, and purified, vastly exceeding what he'd spied in that crevice long ago. The mass in his hold seemed a dream. He lifted his eyes abrupt. "I ain't deserving of this." "You are," the chief countered, "not through seizure, but through restraint." The young lady edged in, her gaze holding his steady. "Had you pilfered our vein, we'd have pursued you to the world's edge. But we beheld you depart with bare hands. Few act so, unless their heart runs true." Her words rang with belief, yet softened by a gentle undercurrent. Tom eased the hide shut, fumbling for a reply. "I didn't wander here chasing payback." "We understand," the chief said. "You arrived because the call reached you." Tom paused, brow furrowing. "Called?" The tracker who had fetched him spoke up. "That trove was rediscovered by our foragers. They traced your old prints. We shadowed you not for reckoning, but to fulfill what the earth set in motion." The Navajo ring held its breath, not in strain, but in quiet anticipation, as if hanging on his very inhale. Tom sensed their focus bearing down, yet laced with an odd kinship, and it stirred him uneasy. He'd spent too many trails alone, too many evenings with just flames for fellowship. Now an entire band regarded him as one worthy of esteem. It weighed heavier than he knew how to bear. He swallowed hard. "What am I meant to make of this?" The chief responded simply, "Whatever your days demand. Wealth seized unjustly draws shadows. Wealth bestowed justly opens trails." He touched the parcel lightly. "This opens one." Tom felt that truth burrow into his core, but ere he could muster a word, the lady's voice rose again, softer now. "It's more than ore we're restoring. It's safeguard." Tom knit his brow. "Safeguard?" "You departed our domain in harmony," she explained. "Now we extend harmony back. Should you ever summon us, we'll answer. The Navajo will stand with you." The vow caught in his throat. Navajo guardians didn't bind their oaths on whims. One companion from their fold was a privilege rare. A full people vowing alliance. Unthinkable. Something turned within Tom, not arrogance, but a quiet reverence, humbling in its depth. The tracker motioned toward his mount. "You'll journey with us till moonrise. There's wisdom yet to share." Tom trailed them into the shadowed gulches where lantern glow danced off the crimson cliffs. The band glided soundless, leading him to the pulse of their homeland. A circle awaited, women tending hearths, young ones clustered by blazes, sages observing with serene insight. No wariness, no doubt, just an open embrace. Tom slid from his saddle deliberate, adrift on how to carry himself. The same young lady drew near once more, her earlier gravity eased into simple interest. "You don't recall me, do you?" she wondered. Tom scanned her features, dredging the past. Glimpses surfaced, the small one darting glances from shelter, her mother as he drew water from a brook, the child's wide-eyed wonder, free of alarm. "You were only a little one then," he said. She affirmed with a tilt of her head. "I saw you abandon the oar. I was near enough to catch your fingers shake as you replaced it, near enough to overhear your whisper, 'Not mine.' That afternoon showed me truths about outsiders."
Tom fidgeted, almost shrinking from her regard. "Didn't reckon a soul caught that." "I did," she confessed, "and for seasons I puzzled over your why. Now it's clear." The evening unfolded in soft exchanges, communal meals, and a growing accord between him and the band. Tom hadn't grasped how keenly he'd yearned for ties until they wrapped around him anew. The Navajo weighed him not by his scarcities, but by that single gift he'd offered unbidden long ago: deference. As first light crept in, the chief summoned the gathering afresh. "Tom Riley," he proclaimed, "the ground has closed its ledger. Wander as you will, but hold this: our paths entwine with yours." Tom inclined his head, words failing amid the swell. "I don't know how to express my gratitude." "You already did," the chief assured. As Tom readied to depart, the young lady approached for a final breath. 13 years past, you turned from fortune. This dawn, you turn with greater than fortune. Her fingers grazed the leather-bound gift. You turn with kin who'll carry your name eternal. Tom gained his saddle, the oar lashed firm beside him, yet the burden he bore transcended the gleam. It was the link. He spurred toward the dawn line, no longer a lone wanderer, but a soul woven to a people who'd settled his debt in ways beyond his wildest reckoning. And off in the distance, atop the rise where it all sparked, the Navajo traced his silhouette with a voiceless vow: respect bestowed, respect restored. And there you have it, folks, a reminder that the choices we make in the quiet moments, they echo farther than we know. If this story stirred something in you, do me a favor. Hit that like button if it landed right. Share it with someone who'd appreciate a good yarn around the fire, and subscribe for more tales of the unexpected. Until next time, keep your compass true. Safe travels.